134 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the highest temperature ever recorded on the surface of this Earth. It happened in Death Valley. And last summer, people drove there on purpose in July. I was one of them. I went to Death Valley expecting to be punished by the heat. What I did not expect was what the heat would show me. There is one thing about this place that nobody talks about. I will tell you what it is. But first, let me show you what it actually feels like to be somewhere this extreme. There is one thing about Death Valley that nobody talks about when they talk about the heat. Not the temperature records, not the warnings, not the people who have died here. Something that hit me on my second morning, standing somewhere I probably shouldn't have been standing, that I have not been able to stop thinking about since. I will tell you exactly what it was, but I need to take you there first. 3 days, Death Valley National Park, California. Every cost, every warning, every moment, honest and unfiltered. Let's go. The heat hits you before you see anything. Not warm, not hot, a wall. I stepped out of my car at Furnace Creek and the air pushed back against me like opening an oven door. Except the oven was everywhere. Death Valley got its name in the winter of 1849. A group of pioneers, lost, out of water, convinced they would not survive, finally found a way out of the valley. As they climbed to safety, one of them turned and looked back and said, "Goodbye, Death Valley." The name stuck. The park is the largest national park in the contiguous United States, over 3.4 million acres. Badwater Basin sits at 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in all of North America. From that same spot, you can see Telescope Peak rising 11,000 feet above you. The vertical range of this park is greater than the height of almost every mountain in the country. Entrance, $30 per vehicle, 7 days. America the Beautiful Pass, $80. Worth it if you visit more than 2 national parks a year. Stay in Furnace Creek if you want to be inside the park. Stovepipe Wells is cheaper and still central. Both book out fast in fall and spring. Summer, most hotels inside the park close. I arrived at 6 a.m., before the heat became dangerous, before most people were moving. And the park at that hour was completely, absolutely silent. Summer 2024. Death Valley recorded its hottest meteorological summer in history. Average 24-hour temperature, 104.5 degrees. In July alone, 9 consecutive days at 125 degrees or higher. Only 7 days where temperatures did not reach 120 degrees. The overnight low averaged 91.9 degrees. There was no relief, not even at night. Park rangers responded to multiple life-threatening incidents. 2 people died. A man lost his shoes on the sand dunes and suffered second-degree burns on his feet. The ground temperature that day was significantly hotter than the air. The air temperature was 123 degrees. My first morning, 5 a.m., I drove to Zabriskie Point in the dark, not because I had to, because I had read that you should. Zabriskie Point overlooks the Badlands of Death Valley, an ancient lake bed eroded over millions of years into a landscape that looks like the surface of another planet. I was not the only one there at 5 a.m.
About 40 people, all silent, all facing east. And then the light came. First on Manly Beacon, a narrow spire rising from the Badlands. It turned gold, then amber, then deep orange. Then the entire valley below started to glow. I have seen sunrises before. This was something else. This was the Earth showing you just exactly how old it is. I stayed for 45 minutes. Nobody left early. Nobody was looking at their phone. There was something happening here that had nothing to do with the heat. I was beginning to understand what it was. Not yet. One more stop first. Badwater Basin. 282 feet below sea level, the lowest point in all of North America. When you stand here and look up at the cliff face above you, there's a small white sign bolted to the rock. It says sea level. It is above you. You are standing below it. The salt flat stretches out in every direction, pure white, flat. Up close, the salt forms hexagonal shapes, natural geometry created by the expansion and contraction of minerals over thousands of years. You can walk out onto it. Your footsteps crunch. The sound is the only thing you hear. I walked out further than most people do, until the parking lot behind me was small, until there was nothing around me but white salt and blue sky and the mountains in every direction. It was 8 a.m., already 102 degrees. I could feel it on the top of my head through my hat. I could feel it radiating up through the soles of my shoes. And standing there, completely alone in the middle of the lowest point in North America, I started to understand the thing I had been trying to name since I arrived. At 120 degrees, asphalt becomes soft. At 130 degrees, helicopter rescue services may be unable to fly. The air is too thin and too hot to generate lift. Park rangers generally advise staying within a 10-minute walk of an air-conditioned vehicle. I was 20 minutes out on the salt flat. I walked back. Mesquite Flat Sand Dunes, the largest sand dunes in Death Valley. I went at 5:30 a.m. before the heat made it impossible. The night winds had erased every footprint. The dunes were smooth and untouched. I was the first person there. Walking in sand is harder than it looks. Your feet sink, your legs work twice as hard, your lungs feel the dry air immediately. At the top of the highest dune in the early morning light before the heat arrived, it looked like the surface of Mars. Later that day, Artist's Palette, a section of the park where the volcanic minerals in the rock have oxidized into colors that should not exist in a desert. Green, purple, red, yellow, pink, all in the same hillside, all completely natural. I stopped the car in the middle of the road and just stared, because nothing I had ever seen in America looked like this. And that was when it finally clicked. The thing I had been trying to name since I arrived. Here is the thing nobody talks about when they talk about Death Valley. It is not the heat. It is not the records. It is not even the danger, though that is part of it. It is this. Death Valley is the most honest place I have ever been. It does not pretend to be comfortable. It does not apologize for what it is. The heat is real. The silence is real. The scale is real. And you, standing in the middle of all of that, you are very, very small. Most places in America work hard to make you feel at ease. Death Valley does not do that. Death Valley just exists. And somehow, that is the most freeing thing I have ever felt. The pioneers who named this place thought they were going to die here. They looked back and said goodbye. I looked back when I left. but I did not say goodbye. I said, I understand you now, and somehow that is enough. Real numbers. Here's what Death Valley actually costs. Park entrance, $30 per vehicle, valid for 7 days. America the Beautiful annual pass, $80. Worth it if you hit more than 2 parks in a year. Hotels inside the park, the inn at Death Valley runs $250 to $400 a night. The ranch at Death Valley, $120 to $200 a night. Both book out months ahead in fall and spring. Stovepipe wells, cheaper, more basic, same access, $80 to $120 a night. Gas? Death Valley has some of the most expensive gas in the United States. Fill up before you enter the park. Budget for it. Food? Furnace Creek has a general store and 2 restaurants. Both are expensive for what they are. Pack your own food and water. Seriously, you need more water than you think. A gallon per person per day minimum. 2 gallons if you're hiking. Round-trip flight from a major US city to Las Vegas, $200 to $400. Death Valley is 2 hours from Vegas. Full 3-day trip, including flights and hotels, $800 to $1,600. For what you see, for what you feel, for what I just tried to describe, it's worth every single cent. And that is Death Valley, the hottest place on Earth, the driest national park in America, the lowest point in North America, and somehow one of the most honest places I have ever stood. If this helped or just made Death Valley feel like something you need to see, subscribe. New video every week. Drop a comment. Would you go to Death Valley in summer knowing everything I just told you? I genuinely want to know. Death Valley is waiting. It doesn't care if you come or not. That's exactly why you should.